Hello comic fans, here's Earl Grey. Today I want to continue my run through my Love and Rockets issues. And as I've did it with issue 1, I only can talk about one issue, and that is of course issue 2 in this video, because this is 64 magazine sized, a very dense issue as well, with a lot of stuff happening. So actually one video alone is not enough, but I'll try it anyway. I will increase and intend to at least increase my speed later on to cover one day, to have covered one day all Love and Rockets issues. But now to issue 2. This is arguably a more Yame-centered magazine. In contrast maybe to issue 1, despite of the beautiful Yame cover, it was maybe a more Gilbert Hernandez centered issue with the BAM saga and stuff. But as you will see here, here's more Yame Hernandez in this issue. As to my copy, this is pretty beautifully reserved. Very good condition, I think. It is, of course, the second printing from December 1990. The first printing would have been from 1983, and I guess you haven't got this Gary Groth introduction in the first printing, where Gary Groth does what Gary Groth does usually, telling us how wonderful Love and Rockets is, and there was never a comic as good as before and will never be later on. And I have to agree, that's basically the line. He is more intelligent in its wording, and especially in one word I kept in my mind, and that's epistolary, and that's a very fitting description how Yame Hernandez told his very first story here. Later on in the video I will cover how these stories in this magazine are collected in different forms, so stay tuned for that. But now to this first story here, and in which we come to know about Maggie repairing a spaceship in the made-up banana republic of Cambodia, and that's so far out somewhere in the jungles of Latin America that there are even living dinosaurs there sticking in the mud, and somehow later on are running around, and that's the spaceship Maggie has to repair with the team of Rand Race. And she is writing letters home to Hopi, telling about her adventures and misadventures down there, and some kind of haphazardly way bits and pieces from her adventures and misadventures there. That's not the way a comic usually works, but with a lesser artist it maybe wouldn't have worked, but Yame pulls this off very beautifully. So we come to learn bits and pieces of her, the sequence of events down there, and there are even some sequences in a more traditional way with speech bubbles and all that. I'm glad he continued later on in the next magazine with a more traditional storytelling and not so wordy caption boxes, but it's very dense what he has to tell us here. So it works, and this story here lays a lot of groundwork and foundation for later issues, and we meet Penny Century down there again, very convenient meeting of them somewhere in the jungle of Latin America, but anyhow, it works. It's just sheer comic book fun. And like the dinosaurs and all the wrestling stuff with Rena Titana, and which is addressed later on in Love and Rockets, and is an important part of Love and Rockets, which I never got really, because all this kayfabe make-believe stuff that is essentially necessary to enjoy wrestling, I guess. I really never understood that, and I'm not sure if I understand it now, but I don't feel it really. But it's Love and Rockets, and everything that is in Love and Rockets, it's at least interesting. So that's the way I work. And that's especially true for all the music groups that were mentioned in Love and Rockets and are still mentioned in Love and Rockets. I have to check them out, and usually they're really good and up my alley. From the beginning, Jaime Hernandez doing his stuff in perfect, awesome manner. But for whatever reason, maybe it's the angle here, this left panel always kept a mark on me. Found it very impressive, and it is still very impressive to me. So what else can I tell you about this very first story here? We have a lot of Penny Century, which is always nice, and talking about cheesecake here. Here's Jaime playing with us readers. Wow, that's the stuff comics are made of. Eek, somebody turn the page. You can see my panties. Okay, it's pretty silly, but I think it's really fun as well. Yeah, really love this story here. For the art and for the story. And then we get Gilbert Hernandez story, and that's Radio Zero, around that errata stigmata lady, a girl with the seldom sickness of bleeding out of wounds of her hands, and I guess feet as well. She plants a bomb in some skyscraper building. The story here is actually not too important, I guess. But the art is really, because it's already, as it is with Jaime, Gilbert was there right from the start. And you can even argue maybe he was at his best in the beginning, because maybe he cared a bit more about the details than later issues, especially in his more recent stuff here. But I really love Errata Stigmata. It's one of she's one of his most interesting side characters. So, and what else? And I love this panel here. She falls on her ass, and then she turns around, and there's a riot going on. And look at this sheer fun, comic fun panel there. Maybe my favorite panel of the whole magazine, even though I'm usually more a Jaime guy, but this panel here is just amazing. So, what have we else? And there's the third in the gang, and that's Mario Hernandez. Telling us a sci-fi crime story somewhere in California. Really, story-wise and from the narration, really interesting, and maybe as it is with a lot of comic creators who do one of their first stories. He tries too much at the same time, and in contrast to his brothers, he's not as able to transport this in a finished and fully formed way. But it's a pretty amazing story, and nevertheless, and I wonder, and I've always wondered, what he would have become if he wouldn't have been one of the Hernandez brothers. But with them as competition in your own household, it's pretty difficult, I would imagine. And we have last story here, Music for Monsters, from Gilberto. Quick and short and pretty funny. Look at them here. Classic Gilberto, all right. Coming in Love and Rockets, number 3, issue 3 of volume 1, Super Maggie. Okay, but that's stuff for next episode. But now to the question, how are the stories in the magazine are collected in trades or in different collected editions? First off, in case you don't want to go the magazine route, of course. First off, we have these softcover tomes here. There was a hardcover edition, but they are pretty rare and therefore expensive. But good luck if you want to try to hunt down one of them. So, Love and Rockets, book 1 contains issue 1 and issue 2 of volume 1 of Love and Rockets. So these two magazines are contained within this book here. The sequence of the particular stories are a bit shuffled and mixed up. So we have an introduction here. And while issue 1, as you remember, started with Bam, here in this trade we'll start with Maggie and Hopi in the story, and Bam is reproduced some pages later. And even more interesting is that Gilbert and Yame did some additional pages for these collections to make the stories better flow and give us some explanation after the fact, so to speak. They still try to improve their stories. Wait, if I can find something like that. Here. For an instance, this mechanics story here from Yame serves as a kind of introduction to the mechanics storyline of Maggie. So we have a lot of these pages actually, in particular in the first volumes. Yes, colored reproductions of the first 2 issues. So we get this as well. And here we have the first story, page of story of issue 2, as I've shown you. And the reproduction is perfect, nothing to criticize. Okay, paper, everything's fine with this book here. As to these additional stories, they were collected in this Bonanza Love and Rockets magazine. It's the same size as the usual magazines, but within here you have all these different additional pages from different issues. And there's a lot of stuff in terms of the first issues here. We have a mechanic story, an introduction to Palomar that was drawn from Gilbert later on, but more about that later when Palomar kicks in the next issue. And what have we else here? Yeah, in terms of issue 1 and 2, there's nothing more actually. But this is a pretty interesting magazine, and if you go the magazine route, I think you have to have just this Bonanza issue. First, I thought this is not important, just a random collection of Love and Rockets issues, but then I got the joke, and therefore I think this is really important. This book here that I've shown you already is just the same as this one, only a later reprint. This here, this bit beaten up copy is from 1985. It's the second edition from 1986, anyhow. And later on they called it, this book 1, Music for Mechanics. And the first pages are a bit different. This here is from the 5th edition, 5th printing from 1996. The first one was from 1994. And here we have my favorite panel that I've shown you before from issue 2. But I think the rest here, different table of contents though, but the rest is the same as in the other book here. A bit slicker, not necessarily better paper. But we start with Maggie. And later on we have issue 2. The covers? That's interesting. I've never realized that, but we don't have the colored... The covers in color, they are missing here. Just black and white reproductions, which are, of course, beautiful in their own right, in the back. So, last opportunity or last possibility to get these stories here from issue 2 is this Locus hardcover that I got from Forgerelli again, with a signature from James. And this embossing of Maggie and Hopi on the cover here. This collects not all the Maggie and Hopi stories, but as you will see, because it starts, for an example, with issue 2. The stuff from issue 1 isn't included in this book here. But really, James really kicks in with issue 2, so actually not the biggest harm done if you're not a complete crazy completionist as to in terms of Love and Rockets. So I would really recommend to hunt this book here down. This is a beautiful book, a fantastic book, and it's of course you only get the James stories here, but starting with issue 2, as I said it, you have the continuous report and of all the James stories. Just a little side note, this panel here with all this page turn joke there, it's of course lost when you reprint it on the left side and not on the right side as it was intended in the first place here. So a lot of local stuff from James that came later on will come later on in later issues, as I will have the pleasure to show you in the next episodes of my coverage of Love and Rockets. So, thanks for sticking with me and listening and watching. Goodbye.